At Jin's recent concert, one of the most striking moments was Jungkook's presence, who arrived looking as impeccable and elegant as usual. His appearance quickly generated a wave of comments among fans. As is often the case, rumors and assumptions quickly surfaced that Jungkook had attended with Jimin. However, what was observed during the event seemed to indicate something different. Jungkook, although sitting near Jimin, displayed a more reserved and distant attitude compared to previous occasions. There weren't many visible interactions between the two, and his body language projected a certain level of disconnection. This attitude had already been noticed a few days earlier, when the two returned to Korea through the airport and Jungkook walked noticeably away from Jimin, not even turning to say goodbye as he got into his vehicle. These gestures are signs that Jungkook could be distancing himself from certain fan service dynamics, especially with Jimin. Although it's impossible to know his intentions for sure, it seems clear that Jungkook has begun to set certain boundaries and act more freely, not exactly following the scripts or behaviors expected by the company or the public. At the same time, Taehyung's brief appearance at the same concert also drew attention. Taehyung arrived before Jungkook, and as always, his presence did not go unnoticed. He seemed relaxed and self-confident, and although his stay was short, it was enough to generate multiple interpretations among fans. Some theories hold that his early departure may have been coordinated by the company, perhaps to prevent him and Jungkook from being in the same space for long periods of time, something that has happened on other occasions. Another relevant detail was the absence of Jungkook's mother at this event, something that did not go unnoticed by those who remember a conversation he had with her on the show Are You Sure? During that call, his mother asked him directly if he was with Jimin. Jungkook didn't respond immediately and ended up mentioning that he was with Taehyung. Curiously, Jungkook avoided mentioning Jimin's name, and after hearing the response, his mother quickly changed the subject, wishing him a good time before ending the conversation. This moment has been analyzed by many as an indication that the relationship between Jungkook's mother and Jimin isn't particularly close, or at least not as comfortable as one might expect. Beyond that, the fact that Jungkook mentioned Taehyung in such an everyday, familiar context reinforces the idea that there is a special relationship between the two, based on trust, intimacy, and a constant presence in each other's lives. Over the years, Taehyung and Jungkook have shared numerous experiences on and off stage. From trips to moments of rest and personal activities, the two have cultivated a connection that is noticeable not only in their gestures, but also in their silences, glances, and small details. Even at events where they don't overlap for long, like this concert, their presence continues to generate conversation, precisely because of the bond many perceive between them. We can't ignore the real moments that Taehyung and Jungkook shared during Hobi's concert. What we saw on stage wasn't accidental, it was a natural demonstration of how they see each other, how they understand each other without words, and how they feel more comfortable when they're around each other. And although not everyone wants to accept it, the relationship between them is authentic, solid, and constant. Many times, the company behind them has made decisions that generate doubts or attempt to distract attention from the obvious. It's no secret that some actions are aimed at highlighting other relationships or creating confusion within the fandom. Why? Because there's fear that a connection like Taekook's will stand out more than others. This strategy isn't new. It seeks to manipulate attention, divide opinions, and maintain control over what is said and believed. We've seen it in recent actions. For example, right after Taehyung and Jungkook shared moments that drew a lot of attention at Hobi's concert, the company decided that Jungkook and Jimin would go to Jin's concert together. This wasn't a coincidence, it was a premeditated move to generate conversation, fuel other ships, and distract from the obvious bond between Tae and Jungkook. Despite this, the most important thing remains what they themselves show us, completely naturally. The images speak for themselves. Taehyung and Jungkook look genuinely happy when they're together. That happiness can't be faked, and although they often don't say it directly, they express it with gestures, choices, and shared moments that go beyond any performance. Taehyung explained this very clearly in a scene from the show Are You Sure? He said he prefers to enjoy certain moments of his private life away from the cameras. This doesn't mean hiding something, but rather protecting what he considers important. What he meant is that he doesn't need to prove anything to millions of people, When a bond is real, there's no need to constantly expose it for it to be valid. This fully applies to what he experiences with Jungkook. Taehyung doesn't need proof, public posts, or theatrical confirmations. Their relationship is built from the private, from trust and mutual respect. There are small but very clear signs that, if you pay attention, confirm them. Jungkook, for example, recently showed off a new stuffed animal that many identified with Taehyung, not only because of the style, but because it fits with details we've seen before in Taehyung, such as his fondness for strong colors, especially red. We also remember that Taehyung has worn red pants on several occasions, a detail Jungkook wouldn't overlook if that stuffed animal represents him. Another much discussed moment was when Taehyung attended Jin's concert. His outfit matched one Jungkook had worn previously. He even repeated a gesture Jungkook had made, sticking out his tongue. It's not the first time this has happened. These details may seem simple, but for those who have followed their story, they are small signs that reveal complicity, emotional memory, and a silent form of communication between the two. The most important thing is to understand that Taehyung isn't interested in playing a role or following the script of what others expect. He doesn't want to share certain important moments with the public because they're part of his intimacy, and the same applies to Jungkook. They both know what they feel, and even if they don't say it openly, they express it with their actions. They don't need proof to prove their relationship is real. They've always done so with what they show in every appearance and in every shared detail, no matter how subtle. Therefore, don't be confused by external strategies. Not everything shown publicly is the most real, and not everything hidden is because it doesn't exist. Sometimes, truth needs silence to grow. And that's exactly what happens with Taehyung. Taehyung and Jungkook don't behave as if they're following a script. Their way of acting together, their natural gestures, and constant physical closeness don't fit what's expected of an acting performance or what's normally seen between people who only work together. When you observe the way they look at each other or touch each other without any concern for their surroundings, it becomes clear that they share a unique relationship. It doesn't matter if there are cameras, interviews, or thousands of people watching them, their body language speaks for itself. The way they understand each other without speaking is constant. They don't need to say anything because their gazes and their hands already say it all. Between them, every gesture has a purpose. When Jungkook approaches Taehyung, he does so with confidence and a calmness that needs no explanation. When Taehyung touches him or calms him with a massage, he doesn't seem to be acting for anyone else. He seems simply to be responding to something that only they understand. In several videos, especially behind the scenes, you can see how Jungkook seeks Taehyung's presence to center himself, and how Taehyung responds with gentle gestures and discreet words. They care for each other in a natural, effortless way, as if it were normal in their relationship. That kind of bond isn't something you see with other members. There are no similar signs with anyone else. Even in small scenes, like when they walk close or sit together, their movements match each other. One acts and the other responds without hesitation. If one changes direction, the other follows. If one offers a hand, the other takes it. These aren't isolated moments, they're part of a constant routine they've built between the two, and they do it without fear of being seen. Whether they're on stage or backstage, what happens between them doesn't stop. Even if there's noise, lights, or instructions, the connection between their gestures remains. It's not a casual exchange or a coincidence. It's a form of intimate and constant communication. This can't be forced, nor can it be fabricated simply because they're in front of a camera. The most important thing is that these gestures aren't meant to attract attention. They're not meant to create rumors or be the focus of a theory. They're just there, happening again and again, regardless of the context. What you see between them speaks for itself. It's not a show, it's how they behave when they're together. And that naturalness is precisely what confirms that the relationship between Taehyung and Jungkook has a special meaning, its own, unlike anything else. What happens between Taehyung and Jungkook isn't hidden, but it's not something easily explained either. Their daily actions, from the simplest to the most intimate, reveal a closeness that goes beyond any common definition. When they prepare before going on stage, you can see how one looks for the other, how they speak in low voices, how they hold each other's arms, or how they offer reassurance with a simple touch. That mutual trust is based on a routine they've clearly built over a long time, and that routine has become an essential part of their way of relating. Unlike other interactions within the group, the gestures between them are constant and very specific. When one feels tired, the other seems to notice without needing to say anything. If one needs space or support, the other knows how to offer it without interrupting or overdoing it. This kind of synchrony isn't learned. It develops over time, when two people share not only experiences, but also emotions and decisions. There are recorded moments where there are no words, but there are many signs. A look that lasts longer than usual. A hand that settles on a shoulder. An unexplained approach. All these actions are repeated in different contexts, presentations, trips, recordings. And it's always clear that they aren't acting for the others. They're responding to the other, as if everything else disappears.